Hello, everyone. We're ready to get started shortly. We're going to wait a few minutes for those that are in the other time zones to jump on, and then we will be getting started. So we'll just hold on just a few minutes, 2 more minutes. And I'll go ahead and share the screen while we wait. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Want to greet everyone again. Hello, this is Lace. Love Applied Can Endure. This is a video club where we talk about different subjects, but they all are connected with love in some way. Winning battles with love is what we're talking about this particular session. It is from one of my books, Winning Battles with Love. We're not going to cover the whole book, but we are going to cover quite a bit of it so that you can understand how to win and when you're losing, why you're losing. You can get this book at Barnes and Nobles if you desire to purchase it, or you can purchase it on my website. Let's give you the information where you can contact me if you need to. Dr. C.V. White, LLC, at 150 Post Office Road, Suite 1027 in Waldorf, Maryland, 20604. My email is drcvwhite@gmail.com. Website is cvwhite.com. So you're welcome to check out the website. We have some free articles on the website as well that I think that you would enjoy. And it would also bless your life. So we're talking about what love is and what love does and winning battles with love. So we gave the definition of what we normally find out what love is from our parents. And most of us said our parents didn't tell us, we just watched it. And then we went over what we're talking about love really is, what God says it is, the unconditional love, agape, that God talks about in the Bible. We went over that. So now this week we're talking about winning battles with love, and we're at the point now where we're talking about losing battles for those that who don't love. Now this particular session is really significant because we're going to be talking about something that will help you understand how to recognize if you're positioning yourself to lose and not realizing that you're positioning yourself to lose. And one of the important things is because we don't like suffering, we often think that we are losing and we need to do something about it when we really are not losing if we are obedient to the word of God. So if we are obedient to the word of God, and if we're obedient, we found out from one of our previous sessions, if we're obedient, then he knows that we love him. He knows that we love him if we're obedient. And that's how he knows that we love him for who he is. Yeah, normally we love him for what he did, gave up his life that we might have life. and have it more abundantly. But he did that because he loved us. And we love him because he did that. But then when we obey him, he knows that we love him for who he is. So sometimes we are in a position of loving the Lord, and then we find ourselves being attacked. We find ourselves being uh, misused and abused, and people are trying to destroy us. And of course, we know that's the devil behind that. So what do we do? What do we do? So we're talking about two different things on tonight. One, we're talking about the person who choose not to love and how they lose the battle. And we're also talking about the persons that they're fighting against that love the Lord and have let the Lord know that they love him by being obedient to him. And so now we have two positions that we can deal with on tonight. We can deal with the fact that we love the Lord and we've been obedient to what he told us to do, and we're being attacked by something, someone, or some organization. Or we can be the one that's attacking somebody else because we do not love them for reasons that we may not even understand. And so we're going to talk about that on tonight. We're going to cover both of those areas of you being in a position where someone is attacking you, and God will take care of it. He will take care of it. If you are obedient to the Lord and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't have to fight your battle. You don't have to take care of that. But a lot of times we get in trouble because we do like things to people that are doing things to us to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves. And we're not supposed to do that, because if we're obedient to the Lord, he's going to do that. He's going to fight that battle. Then we jump in the battle and then we start doing what the world does. And then we are in trouble because now we are the person that's causing an offense. And so Jesus said people will cause offenses, but woe to the ones that do it. So we don't want to be the ones that do it. And so we're going to, when we go through that tonight, we're going to look at subtle ways that the devil present to us where we might do that. And we can realize that we shouldn't do that, and not do it. So let's cover our last slide on last week, where we talked about love never fails. And we're starting, we're talking about what battles are. Love never fails. That was 1 Corinthians 13, 8-9. Love never fails, never fades out or becomes obsolete or comes to an end. As for prophecy, the gift of interpreting the divine will and purpose, it will be fulfilled and pass away. As for tongues, they will be destroyed and cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. It will lose its value and be superseded by truth. For our knowledge is fragmentary, incomplete, and imperfect. And our prophecy, our teaching, is fragmentary, incomplete, and imperfect. That was the Amplified Bible. So you cannot win battles with brute force alone. History has proven that with the many wars, locally, nationally, and internationally, and world wars, you must have battle strategies, good or bad, weather, depending on the strategy, and good or bad physical surroundings, depending on the battle plan. In addition, your motives for fighting must be based on love, exemplifying the characteristics that demonstrate love. So we want to start off tonight by saying that there's two sides to what we're discussing tonight. One side is where you love the Lord and obey him, and you're being attacked. And the other side is where you do not exhibit love in your motives, and you're attacking somebody, or I'm attacking somebody. So we want to look at both of those areas, evaluate that, and make sure that we're not tricked by the devil because of the sudden, the subtleness of what is going on. Okay, so when we look at this one, the next slide here, is World War II, started by Adolf Hitler, was the last world war. And that was the one of the most devastating, because the war started the war not just to win additional territory or materials like coal, precious metals like silver or gold, but also to destroy a nation of people. That had been done, a nation of people that had done nothing to warrant it. So the last major battle of the war was called the Battle of the Bulge. It is historically one of America's greatest battles. However, it is significant because it freed a nation of people that were targeted for destruction. It is not my intention to talk about wars, but I do want you to say initiating battles with motives of intolerance, impatience, hard-headedness, hot-tempered, anger, self-exaltation, meanness, envy, jealousy, injustice, or just for the sake of avoiding the truth, will inevitably lead you to a loss, and all your efforts will fail. And so sometimes we think because these things are happening to us, that we should retaliate because these things are happening to us. But if, like I said, if you're obedient to the Lord and you love him, he is the one that's going to fight that battle. And we're going to see how he does that. We're going to see how he does that on tonight. And remember, the greatest battle but the Battle of the Bulge, is the last big battle that we had. And if we had lost that battle, the war would have continued on. And I guess at that point, Hitler would have thought that he could win. But God had a plan. So we're going to talk about that on tonight. God had a plan. So we can't win with force alone. We can't win with force alone. And we have to have the right motives. We have to have the right motives. So what we're going to focus on tonight is not all of these, but self-exaltation. Now, we know that, I don't know if you know anything about World War II, but anyway, it was a battle. It was a war where the Germans, for whatever reasons, for all of the reasons they started the war, they had the idea that they were superior people. They were supremacist people, like the white supremacists, and they were superior people, and the Jewish people were inferior, and they needed to be wiped off the planet. And so that's what they were trying to do: get rid of them some kind of way, give them away, or do something. And when they couldn't do that, they decided to kill all of them that they had on their property, in their nation, and in the nations that were fighting with them. They decided to kill them. So they were fighting to destroy a nation of people. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now with this one, we're going to talk about self-exaltation again, because the person that we're going to use tonight is Haman. And we're talking about positioning yourself to lose battle. And Adolf Hitler positioned himself to lose the battle because of his hatred for a nation of people, and his motives were not based on love. He positioned himself and his nation to lose that war, to lose those battles. So the person we're going to talk about tonight is Haman in the book of Esther. And I think that those that are on here already tonight are familiar with the book of Esther. And so we know about Haman and Esther and the king and Mordecai. We know all about that. But we're going to look at it from a different perspective on tonight. We're going to look at it from a different way on tonight. And perhaps you've not studied it this way before, but it's gonna bless you, because it's gonna explain some things. So those attitudes that we were just talking about, the meanness, the injustice, the envy, the jealousy, avoiding the truth, impatience, intolerance, hard-headedness, anger, hot-tempered, and self-exaltation. So self-exaltation is what we're going to focus on so that we can, just one of these. Not all of those others do exist. So we want to make sure that we all understand that. Now, these attitudes are the basis that you can use to position yourself to lose the battle. Building a gallows to hang people, corporations, organizations, etc., just because of dislike, envy, or jealousy may cause you to end up on the gallows that you built. A great example of that is Haman. And by the way, he was trying to destroy the same nation of people that Adolf Hitler was trying to destroy in World War II. Haman hated one person because he would not bow down to him, and because of that, he purposed to kill him and the whole nation of people that belonged to him. And his wife gave him the idea of the avenue to kill Mordecai in Esther 5:14. And then Zerah, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and to morrow speak thou unto the king, that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go to in merrily with the king unto the banquet, and the things pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. He caused the gallows to be made. Now, what I'm going to do is a little Bible history. I'm going to talk about the bloodline of Haman, and I can't follow it all the way through, but I'm going to talk about the bloodline of Haman because his people were destined by God to be destroyed. So he did not take advantage of the opportunity to love Mordecai and leave Mordecai alone. Haman was honored by the king, and everybody was to bow down to him. But Mordecai and the Jews, they knew they couldn't bow down to anybody but God, because God was who he was, and they didn't have any other God. So Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. He wasn't God, so Mordecai wasn't going to do it. Now, Haman was an agitator, and these people were the people that God said that he was going to destroy because they attacked Israel when they left Egypt. Now, what bloodline are these people from? They're from Esau. If you all know who Esau is, Amalekite is the one that God is the grandson of Esau. And it was him and his people and his bloodline that God said that he would destroy. Now, when he told Moses and that he was going to destroy them, when that was in Exodus, when they were leaving Egypt, but God didn't do it then. He told King Saul to do it when Saul became king. But Saul didn't do it. Samuel had to do it. The prophet Samuel had to do it. Saul didn't kill the king, and he didn't kill all the people. But I'm gonna give you the scripture for that, because I can't go through all of that. But I want to give you just the scripture where God said what he was going to say. Now, King Agag at the time of Saul's time, that was a descendant of Amalek. That was a descendant of Amalek, and that was an Amalekite. And Amalek, as I said, was the grandson of Esau. And Esau was the twin brother of Jacob. And Jacob was the one that was renamed Israel, with the 12 tribes, with the 12 sons that became the 12 tribes of Israel. So now in Exodus 17, verse 14 and 15, God promised to blot out the name of Amalek from under the heaven and be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. God said that. He said that about those people. Now, why was God upset with them? Because they were messing with his plan and messing with his people that he was bringing out. And so the people did not have to worry about the Amalekites, because God himself had said what was going to happen to the Amalekites. And that's what I'm saying to each one of us. I'm saying that to you. I'm saying that to me and everybody else who's listening. When you obey God and you're doing what it is that God told you to do, he fights your battle. And that's what they were doing. They were coming out of Egypt, had been slaves for 400 years, and God was bringing them out, and he wanted something good to happen with them, and he didn't want them to be fearful or afraid. And here come Esau with a generational curse on him because of what his father did. Now, you all may not remember all of this, but Jacob stole Esau's blessing. Now, Esau gave away his inheritance, but the blessing he stole from Esau. And so Esau promised to kill him. And Esau taught his descendants to hate Jacob and Jacob's people. And so Esau eventually forgave Jacob, and they made up before they died, but the people were still messed up. The people still had that curse in there. They had that hatred in their heart for their brother's people, for their brother, because these were their brothers. These were brothers. And they did some things down through the history of the Bible against these folks, against Jacob's bloodline. And so Esau's people, the Amalekites, did some things against Jacob's people, the Israelites, down through the generations. Now, in 1 Samuel 15:3, God told Saul, and he told him, I want you to kill all of them, to kill all of them. And he told Saul to do that. He said, totally destroy them. The men, the women, the children, the infants, the cattle, the sheep, the camels, the donkeys, destroy all of them. And so when we go and read 1 Samuel 15, we find out around that area in the Bible, we find out that Saul didn't kill the king Agag, and nor did he kill the cattle and the sheep and things. But God told him to kill it all. So Samuel himself had to kill the king, and he made sure all those animals were killed too. He made sure that what God said was done. That was in 1 Samuel. Now, remember, we're talking about the Amalekites carrying down a generational curse that was going down through their family bloodline because of the hatred that they had for their brother. And it was taught to them by Esau, taught his people to hate Jacob's people, and they carried that down from generation to generation to generation. So this was now as we discuss Haman, remember, Haman is all tied up on self-exaltation. He wants to be honored. He wants to be the top guy. He wants all of the people to bow down to him. So we know now. So how does that apply to us? When we're dealing with family feuds and hatreds, that's not a reason to start a battle. That's not a reason to start a battle against somebody because of family feuds and hatreds and things like that. Some families carry grudges for generations against a person, against a business, against a race of people. They carry it for generations. So we have to really understand that we want to be on the side where God is. We want God to fight our battles. We want to be obedient to God. We don't want to be the ones that carry these grudges for generations. And when people get mad with a family member, and then they just don't want to speak to them again, and they quit speaking to them, and they don't want them to participate in family events and things like that. That is wrong motives for starting a battle. And we were talking about self-exaltation now, and so how do we as individuals, how do we participate in that without knowing what we're doing, without understanding? This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Now, last week we talked about the 8 keys, of how to, um, how to actually love people, how to actually make that happen. 8 keys, the 8 keys of that, 8 actions you have to do to make that happen. And so this week we're talking about how not to let the devil trick you into it, and how to stay where you're positioned. If you love the Lord and you're doing what he told you to do, then that's great. That's great. So we're going to keep on talking about that. But here's an example of how that might happen for us. How about if we go to a store and a clerk doesn't treat us right? They don't want to wait on us. It could be prejudice. It could be they're just having a bad day. It could be anything. They're just a mean person. Whatever it is, it could be. So how about people that say, I'm never going to go to that store again? Well, that's unforgiveness, because the store is probably a chain store and the employee didn't own the store in the first place. So if we want to say, I'm never going to go to that store again, we are operating in unforgiveness, and we know the consequences of unforgiveness. If we don't forgive, then God can't forgive us. So why would we punish a whole chain of stores because of one person, and then make up our minds we're not going to do business with them anymore? We're going to talk about them. We're going to tell other people not to go there. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it never occurs to us to evangelize. It never occurs to us to take that opportunity to love that person, to let that person know the Lord loved them, offer them salvation. It never occurs to us to do that, but that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. How about the person that says, I'm never going back to that restaurant again? And again, that's a chain of restaurants. That was just one restaurant. They got restaurants all over the world. And so you're not going to go back to any of them because of one person's behavior and one person's attitude. And you're going to have unforgiveness of a whole chain of restaurants all over the world because one person did not serve you properly. If that one person did not serve you properly, this is what you could have done. Obey the Lord, gave them a big tip. Ask them, did they know the Lord? Tell them that the Lord loved them, and say and apologize and say, I'm really not happy that you're not having a good day today. But I pray the Lord bless you and lead you to him. You could do that. You could do that instead of getting mad and calling the manager and starting all kind of ruckus about stuff. I mean, is that important? How about the person said, I'm never going to go to this business again. I'm never going to do business with this again because I had done this business to do my taxes and they didn't do a good job and they caused me to lose some money. So I'm never going to go there again. Okay, you don't have to go and let people do you wrong. I'm not talking about that. You don't have to go back and let them mess your taxes up again, but you don't have to have an offensive attitude either. You don't have to have an offensive attitude about it. You don't go back there and let them mess up your taxes. You won't go back to the restaurant and let that waitress or that waiter help you because you know that person, and it's amazing to me how we do that. I was at a restaurant yesterday and the young lady that was so good. She was really, really nice. And I told her that. And I gave her an extra tip because she went out of her way to take care of us. And I knew that was something not required of her. So, but we're happy when people do that. But what if she had been nasty and we had to keep calling her and we had to keep calling her? It never occurred to us that maybe she had death in her family, or maybe he's lost his job, or maybe she's sick and just not feeling well, and maybe on her cycle and she's the kind of person that gets a lot of pain, or maybe he is going through some sort of mental health and has lost something in his life. Maybe he's got an eviction notice, and so they got a bad attitude. But we would never know how we can minister to people, because we have the wrong motives when we're starting battles. When we're starting battles like that, we have the wrong motives, and the devil tricks us into thinking that's okay, you know. But even in family members, how about the person that says, I'm never going to invite you to my house again because you don't know how to act, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to protect my property, you don't know how to do this or that or the other. But see, there's nothing in the, and see, all of these folks could be our brothers in Christ. They could be our sisters and brothers in Christ. God gives us the remedy for dealing with issues that we have with them. We're supposed to go to them and let them know what the problem is. And and you can do that. Call the manager, let the manager know what the problem is, but don't be mad at the restaurant forever, and try to work that out. And if you can't work it out, deal with it with the love of God. I was telling somebody yesterday they got a really nasty note from somebody, and they had already told them that they were not going to participate in an event that they were having. And that happens a lot. But how do you now, if you get a nasty note from somebody, how do you respond? You know you're not coming, and you know you're not coming. Now, this event that they're having is real important to them, and they have invited you because they want you to be there. Well, everybody's time is important. And so if they have invited you, that means that they have given a lot of value to you. Well, you didn't want to be there, or you couldn't be there for whatever reason. You don't have to be upset with them because you have to keep telling them. You can say something like, listen, I really appreciate you thinking enough of me and giving all of that value to my being there. I really appreciate you inviting me. That's an honor. But I can't do it because I have something else planned. I just can't do it. But I really would like to thank you for thinking of me. You're still not going. You don't have to have, well, I told you. How many times do I have to tell you that I'm not going? I keep telling you I can't make it, and say something sarcastic or some nasty attitude and offend the person. You can tell them you're not going without doing that. So Haman hated Mordecai, just because he wouldn't honor him. And then, he didn't understand that God was protecting Mordecai. Now, this is the other part of the historical part. And I'm going to tell you, I'm trying to tell you guys all of this so I'll be through with this by 8:30. This is the other part of this. These people were the leftover people that were sent into exile at Babylon. And remember, the ones that went and obeyed God, how he protected them and how he told them he was going to protect them, and they was only going to have to stay there for 70 years. But after those 70 years was over, all of them did not go back to Jerusalem. These are the ones that were left in this. They were left behind. All of them did not go back. There was a small number of them that went back, but all of them did not. And so God protected them, and he protected them because they were obedient. And when he told them that they had to go into captivity, they went. So now he's not going to let somebody kill them, and they were obedient to him. The battle is his. So now that God's got this battle on, he already knows that he has blessed Mordecai. And Mordecai is honoring him and showing him love because he's not going to bow down. He's not going to bow down to Haman. So Haman decided that, since you don't bow down, I'm going to, with the help of his wife and friends, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill all of your people. And how about that? What a motive. You're going to kill a whole race of people, thousands and thousands of people, and all of these different lands that these people have floated out to. Oh, boy. Now I know why. I got some idea why they had to be enslaved for 400 years, because they would have floated out all over the place, because they were all over the place. They were not just in Persia. They were in other countries round and about. But during that time, the king Ahasuerus had control of all of those nations. So let's jump into the next slide, because I am trying to diligently get through all of this. But as I said, they were people that God had blessed, and he was taking care of them. And so he was not going to let Haman kill all of those people that he had blessed and that had obeyed him and that had showed him that they loved him, and he's going to sit back and let Haman kill him. No. And it's the same thing with you. When you and I are obedient to God, knows that we have been obedient to what his word, we have been obedient to what he said to us. If it was a rhema word, we have been obedient what he's the sensitivity that he has shared with us, and we have been obedient. He's going to watch over us. We don't have to join in and do sinful things to get people back that's trying to kill us or trying to destroy us or trying to uh, push themselves forward because they see the favor on your life. You don't have to do that. You can allow God to do that. He can do. You can allow him to do that. So let's jump to the next one. So Haman liked the idea that his wife and friends told him. He liked that idea, and he went immediately to the king to get permission to kill Mordecai in Esther 6:4. And the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman came into the outer court of the king's house to speak to the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And everything that Haman set up for Mordecai backfired on him. He had to honor Mordecai when he had planned to dishonor and kill him. And when Haman was positive that the king wanted to honor him, but it was Mordecai the king wanted to honor. It was Mordecai that the king wanted to honor. And so okay. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. The self-exaltation of Haman, and you know, when he was convinced that it was him that the king wanted to honor, because king had already honored him one time, you know, and Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him, you know, so he just thought, I'm sure it's going to be me, so I'm going to go in there and get him to kill Mordecai. Now, remember, we're going to get to another part of the scripture where he had already gotten permission from the king to kill the people. He had already gotten permission from the king to kill the people, to kill the Jews. So in Esther 6:1-11, and I had to put this on 2 slides because it was too much for one, so I'm going to read all of that. Esther chapter 6, verse 1-11. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told Bethana and Tereth, 2 of the king's chamberlain, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? And then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. And the king says, well, who's in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house, to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? And Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to honor more than myself? Self-exaltation. And verse 7, and Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought to the king, youths to wear, and a horse that the king rides on, and a crown royal which is set on the king's head, and let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hands of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array this man within whom the king delights to honor, and bring him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaim before him, thus it shall be done, the man whom the king delighted to honor. Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparels and the horse, and as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai, the Jew, which sitteth at the king's gate, and let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall be it done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Okay, so Mordecai just really got crushed, self-exhorting himself. Self-exhorting himself. I remember one time when Jesus said, when you get invited somewhere, don't go and sit at the best table, at the head of the table. You wait and be invited there, because that may be a place for someone else. And so you will not be embarrassed if you don't go and self-exalt yourself and get embarrassed. And that happened to me one time. And I'm sharing all this so that we can see how subtle the devil is and dealing with us, and how that causes us to be in a place where we don't even realize that we are. I went to a conference one time with my best friend she's gone on home to the Lord now. And I was going to the conference with her. And we went to the conference, and it was Bishop Idahosa. I don't know if you all know Idahosa. He was out of Nigeria. But he had so many churches all over the world. And he came here, and he was at a church in DC. And we went to hear him. And I went with her. And they had set aside in the front rows reserved seats for ministers. And I knew that it was for his ministers, the people who were under him, because it was their conference. The people who were under him and were submitted to him. But she wanted to sit up front in that seat. And I said, no, I don't think that we ought to be sitting here. And she said, oh, yeah, we can sit here. They said it's for ministers, and we're ministers. And we were. And so I said, okay. And so we sat there. And then before too long, the ushers came and told us we had to move. And it was so embarrassing to her. But it wasn't to me, because I knew that I shouldn't have been there. That I had learned that lesson before she learned it. But I just wanted to say that self-exaltation can sneak up on you. It sneaks up on you when you are not aware sometimes. So that's why we want to make sure that we get some examples so you can see and understand how this is working. How this is working. So now it was, Haman's plan to destroy Mordecai and the whole nation. And he was going to do that just because he hated Mordecai. Now, I don't know that Haman knew his history. I don't know if he knew that he was walking in a family curse that had been on his family since the exodus of Israel out of Egypt. I don't know that he knew that or not, but I know it was in his heart to be honored, and he was not honored, and he chose to kill one man and the whole nation that man belonged to. That was really, really starting a battle that he was going to lose. Just like Adolf Hitler lost, so did he. And so let's jump on to the next one. Let's see where we are. Oh, yep, I got to move a little faster. So Haman was hung on the same gallows that he had built to hang Mordecai. In Esther chapter 7, 9 through 10, and Hasbaz, one of the chamberlain, said unto the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king says, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. And then the king's wrath was pacified. Haman lost the battle big time. His choices affected his family as well. They too lost because husband and father did not want to walk in love. Remember, when you love, you help yourself and people. And when you do not love, you hurt yourself and people. Now, if we know the story of Esther, we know that Esther was in the middle of this. and that she was the one that was calling the banquet, and she was the one that Mordecai wanted to go to the king to save the people, and that she was the one that was intimately involved with her husband, who was the king at that particular time, to get the people saved. But and she did. But it's interesting to know here that um, you can mess up your entire family, just like the ones did that wanted Daniel in the lion's den. They didn't just get thrown in the lion's den. The king had his wife and all the children, and everybody in his family got thrown in the lion's den with him, with them. And so your family has to suffer when you don't follow through with what God told you to do. And if you are following through with what God told you to do, and if you're obedient to God, because He said, that's the way I know you love me, is when you're obedient, then He's going to fight that battle, just like He's fighting the battle for Mordecai and Esther at this particular time, and all the people of Israel, all the Jews at that particular time. He was not going to let them be killed, because He had said that they loved Him because they obeyed Him, and He was going to protect them. That was in one of our earlier sessions, and we were talking about another subject about how God was happy that the people went into captivity willingly, and He protected them, and He punished those and destroyed those that refused to go to captivity. We remember that from a previous lesson. So their entire family, in the lion's den got destroyed. The entire family got destroyed. So we want to let's jump to the next one here. Okay, so we want to take a closer look at what happened, because I want us to see. Now we talked about what Haman did and him being hung on the gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. But then let's talk a little bit about what he did to try to destroy all the people. So sometimes the people will not be just after you, they'll be after your family, or after something else, or after something you own, or after your position, or whatever it is. But if you're doing it right, if you obeying God, if you're doing that, then God will fight your battles, and you don't have to worry about them, and you don't have to get yourself in the same situation they're in by doing the same kinds of things that they do. In Esther chapter 3, verse 8 through 12, Haman is where he was setting it up for the Jews to be destroyed. Now he hadn't figured out yet how to get rid of Mordecai, but he had figured out how to get rid of all the people that belonged to Mordecai. I think his wife and friends were the one that helped him come up with the idea of building that gallows, because he thought, surely I'm in favor with the king now because the queen invited me to the banquet. But anyway, in this chapter, verses 8 through 12, let's take a look at that. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, certain people are scattered among the nations. They live in all the territories of your kingdom. See, they were all in all the different countries. They keep themselves separate from everyone else. Their practices are different from the practices of other people. And they're talking about the Jews here. They don't obey your laws. It really isn't good for you to put up with them. If it pleases you, give the order to destroy them, and I'll even add 375 tons of silver to the king's official royal treasure. Do you realize how rich he was? All of that money, and he's still trying to self-exalt himself. 375 tons of silver he had to just give away so that he could kill the Jews. So the king took the ring off his finger, and the ring had his royal seal on it, and gave the ring to Haman. And Haman was the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. Haman was the enemy of the Jews. And we know that because of what God said back in Exodus, and what God was doing in 1 Samuel. Keep the money, the king said to Haman. Do what you want to the people. And so he he wanted to destroy the whole nation of people. And like I said, it was the same nation of people that Hitler wanted to destroy. And he he was just against them because they would not honor him. All of that money he had, it didn't do him any good. He still wanted to be exalted. He wanted that self-exaltation. And so that was the purpose of all of this that he was doing, killing all of these people so that he could be exalted. He was willing to pay for it to be done. But, he convinced the king to destroy them, but the king did refuse to take his money. But they set up a date to destroy him. Let's look at the next slide. So we finish this passage here. And the king sent for the royal secretaries. It was the 13th day of the first month, and the secretaries wrote down all Haman's orders, and they wrote them down in writing of each territory in the kingdom. And they also wrote them in the language of each nation. And the orders were sent to the royal officials and to the governors of the territories. And the orders who were also sent to the nobles of the nation. And the orders were written in the name of King Xerxes himself, and they were stamped with his own official mark. They were carried by messengers, and they were sent to all the king's territories. And the order commanded the people to destroy, kill, and wipe out all the Jews. That included young people, old people alike. It included women and children. All the Jews were supposed to be killed in a single day. That day was the 13th day of the 12th month, and it was the month of Adar. And the orders also commanded the people to take everything that belonged to the Jews. Now, that was a motivation to kill the Jews, because now you can take all their property. So the more the people killed, the more property, the more things that they would have. They would have the land. They would have the land. They would have all the cattle. They would have, and see, these were prosperous people because God made sure that they were prospering in the land that they were in, and so they were able to get a lot of stuff if they were able to kill them. So they were kind of happy to do that. So the people were notified to kill the Jews on a certain day and take all their possessions. And these people, these were people that obeyed God. Remember, I said that they went into these 70 years of captivity, and they didn't go back to Jerusalem when they went back. They were still in this land of captivity, and so therefore, God would protect them just like He protect you. He will protect us from our enemies. That's why it's so easy for Him to say what to do for our enemies. Forgive them, love them, do something good for them, and pray for them. Because He is the one that's the judge. He is the one that's going to take care of them. He takes care of our enemies. We don't have to do anything but obey and treat our enemies the way He said that they should be treated. They were in all nations, and all these people were ready to kill them. They were ready to kill them. And so let's get to the last verse here so we can see what happened. And a copy of the order had to be sent out as law. And it had to be sent to every territory and every kingdom. And it was announced to the people of every nation that they should be ready for that day. What happens here? This was a generational curse on Haman and his family. And Haman was destroyed, an entire nation, because his generation hate for the people. Haman did this because Mordecai would not bow down to him and honor him. So how do we do this? We do this by what I talked about. We punish entire businesses because of one employee. It could be a restaurant, it could be a grocery store, it could be a retail store, it could be a car dealership, a bank. Just one employee can cause us to act like Haman. Those stores are all over the nation. Very seldom do we go into a store where just a mom and pop or just a one owner store. Maybe we would do that with a restaurant, but most of the stores and most restaurants are chain. So if we make up a decision not to ever go into them again, and we make a decision to not forgive the restaurant because of what one person did, and then we didn't take the time to minister to that person, we didn't do what God said and bring our fault, before the manager, and then still try to get the person saved and still forgive them, even though they may not solve our problem. I didn't say that we had to go back in there and be treated bad, but we can't operate in unforgiveness, and we can't operate as if we don't know what to do. We're supposed to be able to be what people are so that we can save some of them. This should not be done, even if they couldn't provide the service that you need. We should not act like they act. We should follow the process to solve the problem and not create a new problem. We will set our hearts against a person and maybe that entire family because of hurt and pain that they caused or somebody in the family caused. And so we can't do that, like I said before, if you're in a restaurant and you've been, and they don't know how to treat you, the waiter or the waitress don't know how to treat you, you don't know what causes them that. They could have had a bad day if something went wrong. They could have had death in their family or something like that. How about giving them a big tip? How about telling them about Jesus loved them? How about asking them if they're saved, if they want to be saved? How about doing what Paul did? So you said, well, what did Paul do? Well, let's find out what Paul did. Okay, we must become servants just as Paul did. In 1 Corinthians 9:19-23, this is what Paul said. Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone. So if you go into a restaurant and if you're a slave to the waiter or the waitress, why are you acting like a self-exalted person that should be waited on? If you're a slave to this person, then you are not in a position to do and think evil about that. So he says, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became the Jew. Okay, in the restaurant, I became a waiter or a waitress, and that's who I'm talking to. To those under the law, I became under the law. In a retail store, I become the salesperson, just like the salesperson that's talking to me, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. So we can win people if we present Christ and the love of God to them instead of the devil's attitude. To those not having the law, I became one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. He's doing all this to win people. He's being like they are. He's identifying with them. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so by all possible means, I might save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in the blessings. So, some people will be saved who would do this. Some will not. But you and I will never know until we try. So we have opportunities to love people, to introduce them to the gospel. They may not believe and they may not receive, and they still may be mean and nasty. But guess what? Their blood then is not on your hands. But you'll never know if they would have come to Christ if you didn't try. You should put out there a business, you should put yourself in a position to give the gospel. If they reject it, that's not on you. Although they may reject you, you don't reject them. Wow, I'm out of time. I'm out of time. I think that was my last slide. I have some more that I might say, but I'm out of time. So I'm gonna shift now and talk to you guys, get some insight from you guys about what you think about this. Okay. Marlene? Marlene?
Yes.
Okay, did you learn anything that would help you in terms of letting the Lord fight your battles and not acting like Haman?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pass because I kept dozing on and off.
Okay. How about you, Inez?
Yes, I did learn something. I learned about Haman. He developed a grudge against Mordecai because he didn't honor him. And I was thinking about when you was talking about the restaurants and stuff, and I do know back in the day that would happen. That going to the restaurant if somebody misbehaved and I didn't want to go to none of the restaurants. I would avoid them. And I'll tell you a story. When I came out here and Kroger's bought up all the Ralphs, and Food for Less is out here, and Kroger's was one of the most segregated stores in Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, they used to treat my mom. I didn't like that, and that stayed with me. So when they had bought up, and I was telling my pastor, so they bought up everything. Now they've come out here with all their nonsense. He said, you have to forgive them. And I said, oh, I don't want to. But then I kept praying about, I kept thinking about it, and the Lord, I just needed to forgive them because the people that was probably running around, Kroger's now wasn't those people back then that was ill treating Black people in Jackson, Mississippi. So now I do go to Food for Less or Ralph, and I don't feel so like I was convoluted and just didn't want to go in that store, but I would go in there with other people. And I always had that bad feeling, but now I can do it without any of the bad feeling. And I don't know if I'm talking too much, but then when you was talking about that, I said, yes, that has happened to me in real life. Like it wasn't no fairy tale or something that I thought. I know all this happened because I was raised in Jackson. So did have to forgive them, and I let it go. And I think Haman couldn't let anything go. He just wanted to destroy the Jews because of one person. So I learned that I have to let go of things like that, old or new, whatever it is.
Okay. Well, that's good. That is good. That is good. So I'm going to go ahead and pray because we're way out of time, and okay. I don't run too much over. Our Father and our God, we just thank you for teaching us and for helping us to love and understand how to love and how to not lose by subtle things that we don't pay attention to and we think it's okay to do. But Lord, we just bless and praise you to give us opportunity to demonstrate your love and wherever we go, to demonstrate how much you love people and how much you care. And we just give you glory and honor and praise for all of those that are on tonight. And we ask you to bless those that would watch this via social media or other platforms, even on our YouTube channel. We just thank you and we give you glory and we give you praise and honor for teaching us and leading and guiding and directing us so that we might win, so that we would win every battle by understanding what we have to do. That we have learned the keys, God, we have learned how to love, and now we've learned how to make that practical in our life and make it a part of our lifestyle. And now we've learned how to not allow the devil to trick us into operating in his territory and when we don't understand what's going on. So we thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 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 Okay, well, good night, Inez, and good night, Marlene.
Good night. Did you get the birthday gift?
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking it was going to come back because I didn't hear from you, but that's why I asked. But I hope it was all right and you had a great time celebrating your birthday.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I just got my card.
Oh, you just got it?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is my birthday this week. Oh, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting that. That was so nice. And that's one of my favorite places to go.
Oh, okay.
So thank you so much, Inez. You are so thoughtful and kind. You always remember. I don't know how you remember my birthday, but you always do. So thank you so much. And give everybody my love.
Okay, I will. And you take care.
I will, and
And
you too.
coming up, have a great time, a great celebration.
Thank you. I will.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
Good night.